Welcome to Chamber on Tap. I'm your host, Evan Drisner. This is our guest, the wireless age, Alan Cowie, the CEO and president. Take a seat. It's put on by the Chamber of Commerce every month at Hudson's Pub downtown. It's awesome to have you here. It's always cool to have a local entrepreneur, and it's cool to hear your story. So why don't you tell us a little bit of your journey to wireless age and how it started?
Sure. Thanks again for having me, Evan.
No problem.
You must be a very talented guy, because to bring somebody like me on and still be in TV land, I hope your career continues.
Honest to God, I'm surprised it still has. Like I said, after one, I thought it was canceled for sure.
Well, basically, I'm like your typical small town Saskatchewan boy. I mean, I grew up on a farm in small town Saskatchewan, in southeast Saskatchewan. Grew up working hard and went to school, and I had a variety of jobs. I became a certified management accountant, and I joined a small company called the Wireless Age in about the year 2000. And I joined the company as a vice president of finance and operations. And I think we were talking earlier, it kind of was a neat little story that I think everybody could do. Great little business. I became president of the company in 2003, hired some great people, and company went through a few challenges, got bought out, and in 2009 our company went up for sale. And it was a bit of a scary time, I think, for all of our staff. And we ended up, our company was for sale. It was highly sought after. It's been a pretty successful company over the years. And I was fortunate enough through my career to meet a few of very good investors and different people across the province. And they backed me to buy the company in 2009 ultimately. So I kind of went from being just a small guy. Like I said, I don't like talking about myself. It's not the most comforting thing for me. But in 2000, I took a job for $60,000 a year. In 2009, I ultimately became the owner of our company in 2009, which was a multi-million-dollar acquisition. Mm-hmm. We bought the company. We had some great people that stuck with us and have been with the company for longer than I have. And as you said, in 2009, we're a 5-company chain. And today we're, as of last night at midnight, that's where I was until this morning when I drove in, opened our 10th store in Humboldt, and we've got some great people, and it's just been a tremendous success story. And that's really what I'm here to talk about, is the success of our staff that are here tonight and everything.
So Alan, you started in 2000 with the Wireless Age. Before that, you were CFO for a couple of businesses,
Right.
Making a salary. You joined a small company. Why did you decide to go to Wireless Age? What was it that attracted you to Wireless Age?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I graduated college, and growing up in Regina, a lot of people think that the biggest companies to work for are usually the crown corporations. I grew up on a farm. My dad's an entrepreneur, and you learn all about strategic planning and all those kind of things when you're taking your business classes, and you kind of see that when you're an entrepreneur, you actually do everything. It doesn't matter how big your business is. And the appeal was always there. I always wanted to own my own business, ultimately, whether it was to be a farmer or be whatever. So I worked for a variety of different companies. When I went to business school, my first goal was to take marketing, because you want to do sales, be a sales guy. But I knew my goal was to be an entrepreneur, and I felt that I really did not want to trust anybody else with the numbers and some of those parts of it, so I decided to take accounting. Became a CMA, and as you said, I became a controller, a chief financial officer, and I think I've worked for about 4 or 5 companies over the years, and I always worked for small independent businesses, some of them with a couple hundred employees, but owner-operated businesses. And that provided me with an incredible amount of experience over the years, and I could talk for hours about those type of experiences. Some very successful companies, a company called Clifton Associates, which is an engineering firm, independently owned engineering firm with 200 engineers across the province in Regina and Saskatoon. And I've learned so much from different people along the way, what it's like to make payroll at the end of the month and those kind of things. And those are experiences you just don't get when you're working in a large corporation with 1,000 people. So that was the path that I chose. What led me to become involved with the Wireless Age?
Yeah.
I was chief financial officer of what I believe was one of the most successful privately owned engineering firms, being Clifton Associates out of the province with the head office, worked with the owner. And I worked there for 3 years, and it was incredibly challenging raising capital. I learned a lot about raising capital, finding financing for alternative ventures and those type of things. But the one thing, if you're in an engineering firm, you can't be president of an engineering firm unless you're an engineer.
Yeah.
And that's the reality.
Yeah.
I'm not an engineer. So I had an opportunity to take a job with a smaller private company, much smaller at the time, and a lot of people wondered why I took it. But it was ultimately that I wanted to be president of a company. So I joined the company, 2000. I think the company did about 8 million in annual sales at the time. And by 2003, I was president. We actually went public and went through some changes in ownership. And I gained a wealth of experience that I just never could have gained working for a large corporation. And like I said, ultimately ended up owning the company in 2009. And just doesn't make me special. I like to tell a story because I believe it's anything anybody could do, to be honest.
Well, that's definitely the impression I'm getting about you, just a regular guy, which is inspiring. And that's kind of the cool thing about Saskatchewan. Now, I wanted to mention as well, for those of you in TV land, they say it adds 10 pounds. There's like 15 cameras in here, so that's the problem with me. There's a lot of cameras, 10 pounds per camera, that's 150 pounds. I'm actually like a fit 130. Got me real. So the cool story about Alan is he's a Saskatchewan kid, started in a small town. Then he went to Moose Jaw, the metro of Moose Jaw, and did schooling there. And you're in Regina. You have some business now in Saskatoon as well. You're a Saskatchewan kid. You've been in Saskatchewan your whole life. You went to college when it was nothing really was going on in Saskatchewan. People were probably starting to migrate out. You start with the company in 2000. Still nothing really happening in Saskatchewan. What has been the biggest challenge that you faced as maybe the CEO? Maybe it was before the CEO. Maybe it was part of the buying out. Maybe it was when Wireless Age was public. As the CEO, looking back in your journey, what's been the biggest challenge you faced, and how did you face it? And would you change it?
Wow, that's a lot of questions. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned graduating. I graduated with a 2-year business diploma in 1988, actually. And you know, I look at some of the young guys. Karen, my regional manager, sitting over here, and she says, "Alan, we're sitting with some lawyers over here." And I said, "Those can't be lawyers. They look a little young." But if you're about the same age as I am, when you came out of college, jobs weren't that plentiful. The economy wasn't like it was today. And when 1990 hit, we went into a pretty major recession. And if you had a job, you were pretty glad to have it. When I graduated, put this in perspective for the younger guys here. When I came out of college, everybody talked about setting goals and having a career path and all those kind of things, and I was always a big believer in that. When I graduated college at the age of 20, my goal, honestly, was to make $30,000 a year by the time I was 30, and I figured I had it all planned out. I would have the world by the tail. And I just hoped I could hold the job long enough to do that. And the world's changed a lot. I mean, jobs are very plentiful for the kids that come out of school now. That was challenging days. I also graduated college with a diploma, a wife, and a baby. And that actually ended up being the better part of the three, was the wife and the child. So I'm actually I'm 46 years old now, and I've got a grandson as of about a year and a half ago, and it's been pretty spectacular. So the challenges that I faced, I wouldn't have changed them for a second. Absolutely.
See, before we were talking a little bit about business and your journey, and I was telling you a bit about a story about how my successful friends, the people that I know in my peer group, maybe 10% of them had a strategic plan, and they were super driven to that goal. They wanted to be a vet, or they wanted to be the owner of this company, and they worked hard. And I was the guy in university making fun of them. What are you doing? It's Friday. What are you doing? It's Monday morning. And the rest of the group, have all been as successful, and they didn't have that strategic plan. But the common thread with all of them was they worked hard and they had integrity. And it's not just a Saskatchewan way, I believe it's kind of a business way, that if you work hard and you have integrity, you're going to make it. You have kind of a cool story talking just about that, how you believe you worked hard. Talk about this story when it was still a public company and you were president, you felt pressure. Talk about the decisions you've made, the feedback you got back, but how you believe that's allowed you to be where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of challenges that you face, and I was always very goal driven. I mean, I gave the speeches when I was in college.
You were that guy.
I was that guy. All about goal setting. You have a plan, and if you work hard enough, you can make anything happen. Prior to, like I said, I worked in 4 companies, and every company that I ever worked for, I worked as a kid washing cars before I went to college too. And every company I ever worked for, ultimately, if I was going to stay there, I was trying to figure out how I might own it. I worked for one company though, and I really convinced myself that I could make this one happen. I worked really hard, and I put everything into that if you work hard enough, you can make this one happen. Sometimes you can't make things happen. That's just a reality. You can't make things happen all the time, no matter how hard you work. And that's a tough one to face if you set yourself up like that. So I moved on, and what I really found, I think we talked about this, there's an old saying that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. So I continued on with that same hard work ethic that you always talked about. And I found myself working hard for the company that I was. I was president of the company, had a great arrangement, I had a profit sharing arrangement. As I said, we started the company, it was at $8 million a year. I had worked hard to help take this company public. I think we were doing about $30 million a year in sales in 2009. And I was actually happy with that. I didn't have to own the company because I felt like I had a piece of it. I was president, I was living my dream. But the ownership of the company at the time, I had done some other investments, and the company ended up not in a great place and ended up being up for sale. And all of a sudden my life changed a little bit. And it was, like I said, it was going to be sold. There was no question about it. I had a lot of great staff that worked for me. In all likelihood, the company was going to be bought by another company. And what we did in our situation was, because of the contacts I'd made, I had to dig in and work really hard to try and figure out how to put together backing to buy this company. And if there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, and I don't have to tell them how hard business actually is when you've got to make decisions and make choices. I've said to my staff many a times, running a business, it's pretty easy, it's a lot of fun. Running a profitable business and a successful business is really, really tough.
Yeah, it is.
And that was probably the biggest grind of my life. And my wife and children will tell you stories that they seen it on me, and it felt like it aged me 10 years over a period of time, but I stuck with it, and I was encouraged to stick with it, and I couldn't have done it without the support of my family, and I couldn't have done it without the support of my staff, which a lot of them are here tonight. And they stuck with it all the way through. And if you don't have people that believe in you, inside and outside your company, you really can't do things. And you got to do things for other people too. So it just ended up being a tremendous, tremendous story. And like I said, I'm not up here to tell you all about how wonderful I am and why I could do it by any stretch of the imagination, because I firmly believe going from being an employee in a company to owning a company, which is a very major corporation, anybody could do it if I could do it, trust me. And but it's a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice.
You're such a humble guy, Alan. And the cool, like, I've been able to talk to him a bit before this, so this isn't like a 20-minute, yeah, you're great, TV loves you, you look fantastic. I hate how thick your hair is, Alan.
The camera's on the right side, trust me.
I've been involved with this. But the camera's right there, and don't catch this half of me, or this half of me. And a lot of makeup on this part of me, I'm just kidding. But every entrepreneur, and I know there's some in the room because I know some of them, has faced risk at some point in their job, whether it be the company is having a transition, or the risk that every entrepreneur faces when they're starting their business. And what I really loved was the story that you briefly told me out there about how you started the business. And he's just a regular guy, working a career with a regular salary. He's not living in the biggest house in the area. He's just plugging away. And he had a lot of diligence. He had a plan, like you said. And you paid off your mortgage. You did that kind of stuff that allowed you to get to this part, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's a 1,000 reasons why I shouldn't have ended up being the owner of the Wireless Age, and that's just a fact. Yeah. I was just a guy, lived in the north end of Regina, not the south end.
Right on, North End Regina.
Absolutely.
Archbishop MC O'Neill was my high school. Shaw TV, get this in Regina. Trust me, I'm famous there.
Absolutely. I mean, my first mortgage for my first house was 13.5%. Was a $70,000 house. I bought it, lived in it for 10 years. I sold it for $70,000. House prices didn't always go up, trust me. But I always lived by the rule of work hard, put your money away, pay down your debt, and all those kind of things. It's the way I was raised. Having a young family at a young age, we talked about that. I mean, we share that, right? The biggest thing you do, the way we were raised, was you provide for your family and provide security for your family. And that really prevented me from taking a lot of risk over the years. So I wanted to make sure my family had a solid base. And in 2009, we were fortunate enough that we had paid off our mortgage on our house.
Had the equity?
Had the equity. We bought our house at the right time for $150,000, and the property values in Regina and Saskatoon went to $450 or whatever they are. So we've got some equity. But at the same time, all of a sudden you've got security, and again, talk about taking a risk. The only way I could do the deal was we had to go to borrow money against our house.
Yeah, of course.
Which you can't do on your own. Your wife has to sign for that. And that's a tough one.
Yeah.
And that's a real tough one. And it was a big risk. And we kind of laid it all out there. And I couldn't have made that decision on my own, in all honesty. I mean, it's not about me. And without my wife looking me squarely in the eye and saying, money doesn't mean anything to us.
Yeah.
We've got kids. We've got those kind of things. And I think I told you this story. You'd had something on there about, on your questions about maybe what were some of your biggest accomplishments that you're most proud of and some of those kind of things. During this whole fight, there was many times where to try and buy our company, I mean, like I said, I'm a guy living in North Regina, trying to acquire our company in a highly competitive bidding situation, bidding against multi-million-dollar corporations, which should have been able to buy the company much quicker than I could.
Yeah.
Ready to throw in the towel many times. And I woke up one morning during one of the toughest mornings, and my 18-year-old daughter had got up in the middle of the night and stuck a letter in my briefcase that told me why I had to stick with it and how much she admired me. And nothing else mattered. Just go out there and fight. Fight for your employees, fight for your staff, the people that believe in you. And Dad, if you quit, what are you showing them? And it sounds corny, but I couldn't have done it without those kind of things.
Yeah.
So.
And we were talking before, family is such a core value in Saskatchewan, and when we moved back here from Alberta in 2003-ish, that was the first thing we noticed, was it just the real blue collar, family matters. Money helps us pay for the things that our kids like to spend and buy. Trust me, I'm at that point. My 8-year-old is not writing me letters. He thinks I'm the dumbest person that exists. So does my wife, actually. But honestly, it didn't take me long to recognize that in you. You're a family guy. You work hard for what you got. You're not pompous. You're not floating around in your Burberry suit. I'm kidding, because he's got a Burberry suit on. But the story is actually pretty brilliant, honest to God. He's got a Burberry suit on, but you'd almost expect you to have a Burberry suit on. If I know, okay, he's got 10 stores, Saskatoon, Regina, he's a Wireless Age guy. He's the reason why my iPhone auto-corrects Wireless Age to Sage. By the way, when you texted me this morning, it said Sage. I'm like, Sage? That's weird. Wireless Age. Anyway, you're the reason. I'm just kidding. But you would expect a guy like that to have the Burberry suits and the fancy shoes and the great head of hair. But he's not that guy. Honestly, he's not that guy. He's saying like, look. I think I complimented on him suit. He's like, look, it's a nice suit, but here's the background. We went to Vegas, and I went into the store, and they said 50% off. And I'm like, well, this one says $200 because they mislabeled it. So we got a Burberry suit for like $100. Like high five.
It's actually the second biggest accomplishment of my career.
See, that's the beauty of that's what I love about Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan story.
It's a Saskatchewan story. You still got that farmer in you.
Absolutely.
Whoa,
Absolutely.
Diesel's pricey. I don't know if I can get that suit. Diesel's like $1.20 right now. But it's a perfect illustration of not only Saskatchewan entrepreneurs and Saskatchewan business, but of your company and how I believe you lead. So, looking forward, you've been in near Carndorf, Saskatchewan, which is in the southeast corner.
Yeah.
You went to Moose Jaw. You're in Regina now. You have 2 daughters, a grandkid. You look fantastic, by the way, for having that mileage on you. But going forward, you've seen Saskatchewan in the 80s. You were here around when the Divine came in. You were also when the government switched. You've seen the exodus to Alberta. You stuck it out. Where do you see Saskatchewan going forward? Obviously, you've just invested in Humboldt. You're still planning on growing. Where is that perspective coming from, this drive to keep growing? Do you see Saskatchewan continuing to grow?
Well, it's interesting. I think I do. I keep a pretty close eye on what's going on the world stage and everything. And I mean, the world's got a lot of challenges, and we don't live in we're not alone. I mean, potash, all our commodities, agricultural commodities and everything, I mean, are shipped around the world. Mm-hmm. That's just a reality that we can't avoid. As our premier said, though, in a world that has a growing population, developing nations, you have to stand back and say, I like our chances, I think was his quote. Yeah. And, everything is relevant. So if the economy is not growing at breakneck speed around the world, and we've really been growing at breakneck speed the last few years, no question about that. Maybe that's not sustainable. I'm not sure that is. That's just my personal view. But with the things that we offer the world in terms of agricultural products, world that can afford to buy our products, potash, mining, and we got a whole lot of other stuff going on now, manufacturing, all sorts of things. I like our chances. And we've lived through. I lived through the ¡80s. Probably people that have lived through a lot more stuff than I have. And you see stock market corrections and those kind of things. And I remember my mom saying, "Man, I lost $100,000 in my retirement fund of whatever that she'd worked her whole life for." I said, "Bill Gates lost $1 billion last year." I mean, it's all relevant. I think we're going to end up at the top of the heap. So our goal is to continue to grow. We believe in the province. We are a locally owned company, and I think we've got a lot to offer. We'll continue to diversify within the province of Saskatchewan is what we're going to do. And I think it's going to be good for all of us.
I was at a construction association meeting, and we've had some analysis, like guys that are coming in and doing analysis, and they're saying the same thing. They're saying, look, Saskatchewan is not in a boom. A boom is based on want. A boom is like, I want that Camaro, so I'm just going to buy it. We have what people need. We got potash, we got uranium, we got oil. Those are pretty major things, and Saskatchewan's looking good for a long time, which helps companies like you, right, and grow. So going forward, what's your next? Humboldt. You just did that. You're going back right after this. You're going to get that going. We're after Humboldt.
Well, I don't want to lay all my cards on the table, but I think I think we are gonna see a little bit of some consolidations. I mean, you see it in any industry where there's smaller players. So we've got a little bit of we've strengthened our positions. Like I said, we had two stores in the Saskatoon market in 2009, and the bulk of our growth has actually been in the Saskatoon market. We've got 5 in Saskatoon if you include Martinsville right now, and as well as Humboldt. And we've made a conscious effort to kind of look around the perimeters beyond Regina, Saskatoon. There's a lot of economic growth going on outside, and despite the recent announcements where there is some slowdowns, maybe in Potash Corp, for example, and there were some layoffs that are in the mines, surrounding Humboldt, for example. Those aren't going away. There's a lot of activity around there, and you don't stop those projects forever. So you've got to think long term, and that's what we're here for, is we're investing for the long term as well. So we're going to continue to build out our footprint around the province and be able to service the whole province. A lot of companies out of Regina, Saskatoon work around the entire province and service around the entire province. And that's really been our key to success that we've really focused on as a company, is we focus on the businesses first. And our theory has always been, if we can do a good job servicing your business needs, hopefully where the growth in our industry is in the kids.
Yeah.
Your kids, my kids. If your kids don't have cell phones yet, they should, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. I was driving, honest to God, I was driving yesterday by an elementary school on 51st in Illinois, right? Driving down, and there's this kid, minus 25, his winter jacket's wide open, on a cell phone, chatting as he crosses it. He must have been like 8 years old. I'm like, that was like brilliant marketing, my friend.
Absolutely. I mean, there's only, if you're worried about your communications being critical with your business, I mean, it's really important that you know exactly where your kids are. So trust us with those most important ones as well.
The funny part is, like times have changed. I pictured the kid getting home, and his mom was more mad about the air time that he was using on the cell phone than his jacket being zipped up at minus 25. It was a whole different world. A completely different world. Alan,
Wow.
it's a great having you, man.
Hey, thank you.
Really good
Thank you
having
very
you.
much.
Thanks, man.